How do we find a spiritual father? Well, there is no simple answer to that except that you pray fervently and you consider very seriously before you enter into that relationship, ideally. Your circumstances will also play a big part. If you're in a place where there is an abundance of them, let's say in northern Greece, where you have abundance of spiritual fathers from Mount Athos and other places, obviously that will be a different process. If you're in, Western Australia or Idaho, or I don't know where. I mean, Idaho actually has a number of parishes, but you understand what I mean. There's places where it's very difficult. You have to travel. In many places, in my experience, one will either, by the grace of God, be able to find a spiritual father nearby in a parish or in their own parish, which is quite ideal. But many times they cannot. Many times they don't feel comfortable. They don't connect. They don't understand or agree or whatever. There's a variety of things that make it difficult for them to submit to a priest or even their own priest. By the way, in Greece, we do not have this idea, which some people have in America, that you must take the parish priest as a spiritual father. I've never heard that, never seen it, never imagined that it could be enforced. Like there are parishes where the priest enforces this and says you cannot, and if you want to be a part of this parish, you must come to me. It's simply unfathomable for me in my experience from Greece and in America, the limited experience I have in the Russian Church abroad. I don't think that's possible to even talk like that. This is a question of freedom. You can't force somebody to marry somebody. You can't force somebody to go to a spiritual father. So in my experience, understanding, you have to find it. You have to submit yourself voluntarily, of course. And this is oftentimes a search. It takes time and patience and prayer. And it may, in the Western world where there's not that many monasteries or parishes are far away, it may mean that you have to actually get in a plane or a car and travel to monasteries or other parishes or what it might be to find that spiritual father. I was counseled early on by a very wise bishop that this is the most important decision I'm going to make. It's extremely important that I be patient and perseverant, that I pray, and that in due time, God will send the person. I'll know, and that's exactly what happened. I met him, and I immediately understood this is my spiritual father. It was a very kind of spiritual event, and I was very much at peace. I was just drawn in, and I felt, at home. I was like a long lost father or friend, and that's kind of, at least in my experience, that's how you kind of knew this was your spiritual father. Now, I'm not saying it's a universal experience. I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just trying to give you some insight how it may happen. In any case, it needs to be a decision you pray about, you search, you take your time, you make that decision, and then you submit. Now, only if a spiritual father becomes very problematic in terms of not teaching the Orthodox faith, or he himself falls away from practices that are basic, into grave sins and I don't know what else, then you can be released and you can walk away. You can also say, look, I would like to go and find another spiritual father. Give me a blessing. And most spiritual fathers will say, you're blessed to go. I don't know of anybody who would say, no, you cannot leave. It just it's not the Orthodox way and ethos. So yes, you will submit, etc., but you can walk away. Doesn't mean it's always spiritually beneficial to do that, especially in a monastic setting. This would be seen as something really problematic and a challenge to your spiritual life, to submit yourself to a spiritual father and then 5 years later say, I'm out of here, bye-bye. That would not usually be something blessed. I mean, there are exceptions to everything. There are always some exceptions somewhere, but as a norm, that would be problematic. And I would say you should not enter into a relationship with a spiritual father with that kind of flippant, well, maybe I'll just, I'll get up and leave kind of approach. But if it does come to that, because the spiritual father has now innovated in terms of faith, or is practicing something that's really problematic according to the patristic teaching, obviously it's a problem, and you can ask a blessing and leave and go to another spiritual father. But anyway, the process is that, I think it's a basic prayer, discernment, patience. Go visit, meet, go again, go a third time, ask, will you be my spiritual father? Or go to them and say, do you know anybody you can recommend in my area? At a nearby monastery or something like that. So that's usually how it works.